They say nature is beautiful, but look at this guy. Just look at him. He's not a bird, he's a potato that's losing his little mind to a ragtime beat. This is the American Woodcock, and today we're going to go into a somewhat detailed overview about what this creature is, how it lives its life, maybe some more stuff. Let's talk about the design of this thing. If you gave a toddler some clay and a handful of sticks and said, "Build me a bird," you'd get a woodcock. First, look at the eyes. They aren't on the side of the head like a normal bird, they're basically on the back of the skull. This is because they spend their lives with their face in the dirt, foraging for worms and other food. If you're a woodcock, you don't care what's in front of you. You care about the hawk that's currently deciding if you taste like chicken. They have 360-degree vision. They can literally see behind their own heads. It's like having a rear-view camera installed in your skull. But because the eyes are so far back, there was no room for the brain. Evolution just went, flip it. Their brain is literally upside down. Their cerebellum, the part that handles balance, is at the bottom of their skull instead of the back. They're basically flying around with a glitchy operating system. And honestly, it explains a lot about their personality. And then there's the beak. It looks like a long, stiff straw, right? Wrong. The tip of it is actually prehensile. They can open just the very end of their beak when it's deep underground to grab a worm, like a pair of surgical tweezers. Oh, and the ears? They're tucked underneath the eye sockets. If this bird tried to wear sunglasses, they'd be covering its ears. It's a mess. A beautiful, functional, evolutionary mess. Now we have to address the elephant in the room, or rather, the potato in the mud. The walk. Most birds walk to get from point A to point B. The woodcock walks like he's trying to recalibrate his own physics. Look at the rhythm. It's a slow, slow, quick, quick, slow. Scientists call this rocking, but let's be real. He's vibing. But why? Is he listening to an underground rave? Is he just a huge fan of Scott Joplin? Actually, it's a tactical maneuver. By shifting his weight forward and back before every step, he's sending rhythmic vibrations deep into the dirt. To a worm living underground, this sounds like heavy rain or a predator digging. It freaks them out. The worms start moving to escape the earthquake, and the second they wiggle, the woodcock's sensitive beak picks up the signal. He's literally hunting by using his own body as a subwoofer. Think about that. Most predators have to be silent and stealthy. This guy catches dinner by performing a one-man flash mob. He's the only animal in the forest that treats the sidewalk like a 1920s disco floor for a tactical advantage. If you tried to hunt a burger by doing the Macarena in a McDonald's parking lot, you'd get arrested. But for the woodcock, just another Tuesday. Now you might be thinking, okay, he's a weird-looking bird that dances for worms. Surely his love life is normal. And to that, I say, have you been paying attention at all? When spring hits, the male woodcock decides he's done with the entertainer walk and starts his second job as a fighter pilot. He finds a nice, quiet field at dusk, usually right when you can barely see anything, and starts his opening act. The peent. That's it. That's the sound. It sounds like a tiny robot being squeezed or a very polite laser gun. He'll sit there in the dark, painting his heart out, waiting for the female to notice his vibrant personality. But then, things get crazy. He launches into the air, and he doesn't just fly, he spirals. He goes up 200, 300 feet into the air in these massive sweeping circles. And here's the kicker. As he climbs, you start to hear this high-pitched whistling sound. Most people think he's singing, but remember, nothing about this bird is normal. That sound is actually his wings. His outer primary feathers are so thin and stiff that they vibrate in the wind like a reed in a saxophone. He's literally whistling with his armpits. Once he hits the top of his flight, he starts to chirp. Actual vocal singing this time, and then he just gives up. He zigzags back down to the earth like a falling leaf or a plane with no engines, landing almost exactly where he started. He does this over and over all night long. It's an exhausting high-altitude musical stunt. Just to get a date. If a human guy tried this, launching himself off a roof while whistling with his shirt and then falling into a bush, it's a 911 call. But for the woodcock, peak performance. It's the sky dance. So he's finished his dance. He's found a lady woodcock. Now it's time to settle down. But woodcocks don't build nests in trees like civilized birds. No, they just find a patch of dead leaves on the ground, scrape a tiny divot with their butts, and call it home. It looks like less of a nursery and more like someone accidentally dropped 4 eggs in the middle of the forest floor. But here's the genius of it. The woodcock is the undisputed world champion of camouflage. Their feathers aren't just brown, they're a high-definition map of the forest floor. They have bars of black, splashes of gray, and earthy tones that perfectly break up their silhouette. When a female is sitting on her nest, she doesn't fly away if a predator or a hiker gets close. She does the opposite. She freezes. She trusts her camo so much that she will let you get within inches of her, staring at you with those giant, unblinking eyes, betting her life that you literally cannot see her. I've seen people walk right past a nesting woodcock, almost stepping on her, and she won't even flinch. It's a high-stakes game of chicken where the bird always wins. And when the chicks hatch, they're basically tiny, fuzzy cotton balls with legs. They're precocial, which is a fancy science word for they can move when they're born. Within hours of hatching, these little puffballs are out of the nest and following mom through the brush, looking like a group of sentient pom-poms following a larger, more developed pom-pom. They grow at an insane rate, too. In 2 weeks, they're already taking short flights. It's like a human baby being born and then deciding to go for a light jog and a flying lesson by the time it's 14 days old. You might wonder why we don't see these guys all year round. It's because the woodcock is essentially a professional earthworm hunter, and earthworms have a nasty habit of freezing underground in the winter. Since the woodcock doesn't have a jackhammer for a beak, it has to stay where the ground is soft. They follow the so-called frost line. When the ground freezes in the north, they pack their bags and head south, mostly to places like Louisiana and Georgia, where the mud stays squishy all winter long. They're short-distance migrants, which means they don't go to South America like some show-off songbirds. They just go far enough to keep the buffet open. But here's the serious part. They are incredibly picky about their real estate. They don't like old, tall forests. They like young forests, areas with thick, brushy alders and lots of clearings. Because humans have gotten really good at putting out forest fires and stopping natural disturbances, the young forest habitat is disappearing. If the wood gets too old, and the canopy closes up, the woodcock loses its dance floor and its dinner table. That is why forest management, like controlled burns or strategic clearing, is actually a woodcock's best friend. Without messy, thick, ugly-looking woods, we don't get to see the woodcock. So we've been calling this guy a forest potato, but it's time for the big reveal. The woodcock is actually a shorebird. Scientifically, he's in the same family as sandpipers, snipes, and seagulls. You know, the birds you see at the beach screaming for french fries. That's his extended family. But somewhere along the line, millions of years ago, the woodcock looked at the ocean and went, "Nah, too salty," and just walked into the woods. He's basically a sandpiper that decided to trade the surfboard for a flannel shirt. If you look at his cousins like the Wilson snipe, the resemblance is obvious. They both have the long beak and chunky body. But while his cousins are out there chasing waves and eating tiny crabs, our boy is inland, hiding in the mud and eating earthworms. He's the one cousin who moved to the mountains and stopped answering the family group chat. He even kept the long beak, but instead of using it to find buried shrimp in the sand, he uses it to find buried worms in the dirt. It's like a specialized beach tool used to fix a lawnmower. It's weird, it's unnecessary, but for him, it works perfectly. By now, you're probably thinking, I need to see this dancing potato in person. But as we've learned, you can't just walk into the woods and ask for him. You have to be strategic. First, timing is everything. You want early spring. Think late March to April. This is sky dance season. You need to find a singing ground. Look for an area where a young, brushy forest meets a wide open field or meadow. Get out there at dusk, not dark, but that golden hour right before the sun disappears. Find a spot on the edge of the field, sit down, and be absolutely silent. Do not use a flashlight, just listen. You're listening for that peen. Once you hear that, keep your eyes on the horizon. When he launches, he'll look like a dark, chunky bat spiraling into the sky. If you're lucky and you stay quiet, he might even land right next to you. Just remember, you are in his ballroom. Treat him with respect, keep your dog on a leash if you have him, and for the love of everything, do not try to outdance him. you will lose. And also, before you do any of this, be sure to check his range maps and make sure he'll actually visit you, because he's really only in the east. And yeah, so you won't get disappointed. Be sure to check that. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and I will leave you with 1 minute of a woodcock dancing set to music in this video from the good folks at the Center for Biological Diversity in Tucson, Arizona. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now. I'll see you later.